John Bolton is a neoconservative from the Bush administration who was the former U.S. ambassador to the UN. He went on Fox News to talk about Edward Snowden. Listen to what he said here. This is unbelievable.
Well, you heard it there. NSA officials considering amnesty for Ed Snowden in return for those stolen security documents. The controversial deal would return the NSA leaker to the U.S., but as you just heard right there, General Keith Alexander does not think it's a good idea. John Bolton, what's he think? Former U.S. ambassador to the UN, Fox News contributor, and sir, good day to you.
Good afternoon. Glad to be with you.
I don't know why they're talking about this publicly. Is it possible there's some sort of backroom deal that is happening now? What do you think of that?
Well, it's possible, but I must say, absent some other important piece of information, it has to be one of the dumbest things that I've seen in a long time to be speculating about this publicly, even if they are contemplating some kind of deal with Snowden, some kind of amnesty. The last thing that people ought to be doing is speculating about it publicly. It will inevitably make it a political football, and it will enhance Snowden's bargaining power. What they ought to be.
Why are they doing it then? Why at least are some of them doing it?
I think it's a big mistake. I have no idea. I mean, my view is that Snowden committed treason. He ought to be convicted of that, and then he ought to swing from a tall oak tree.
Snowden committed treason. He ought to be convicted of that, and he ought to swing from the nearest oak tree. Are you fucking mental? No, everybody understand what Edward Snowden did. This is important. This is the crux of the issue. Edward Snowden said, hey, American people, just figured out that our government is blatantly violating the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution, which protects you from unreasonable search and seizure, and says that you need specific warrants when you need to look into somebody's private life. I mean, they're collecting hundreds of millions of people's information. Phone calls, emails. We just learned the other day, World of Warcraft. They're spying on people who play the game World of Warcraft. All this dude did was say, hey, heads up, all of you are not actually involved with terrorism, nor are you part of a terrorism investigation, but they have your information, they have your metadata, they're bulk collecting. This is kind of exactly like Orwell, okay? So, and he says, no, that is an offense that he should get the death penalty for, when he's simply letting us know that the government, who's actually breaking the law here, it's not Edward Snowden, it's the government that's breaking the law, because they are saying, oh, this is top secret information that we can't release, this is classified, we can't release this to the public. But the information that they're keeping classified and that they're saying is secret, they're not allowed to keep that information secret, because they're violating the Constitution. So they're breaking the law. It's the government breaking the law, not Edward Snowden. But John Bolton flips it and says, oh, forget the fact that the government's breaking the law and violating the Constitution and the founders would be turning over in their graves. Forget that. Only focus on the guy who told you about the people breaking the law. This is the old Fox News trick. They used to do this all the time about the war in Iraq. They wouldn't talk about the war in Iraq. They would talk about the people who were talking about the war in Iraq and saying that there were some issues with it. And they acted like the people who were talking about the war in Iraq were the people who we should direct our anger at, and we shouldn't direct our anger at the war itself. It's the old diversionary tactic. No, the government, let the government do all the spying they want, let them violate the Constitution all they want, and you know why it is that John Bolton believes this? Because he's from the Nixon school of thought. If the president does it, it's not illegal. If the government does it, if the establishment does it, it's not illegal by definition. But see, John Bolton is wrong, and John Bolton is an idiot. Because that's the way the founders set up our country is the exact opposite of what he thinks it is. The founders made us a nation of laws, not a nation of men. You can't willy-nilly have a person override our system of justice. You can't have a person say, well, I disagree with the Constitution, so I'm not going to obey it. The whole point of a Constitution is that those things are not open to debate. They're not on the table. They can't be changed, okay? Unless you get a 3/4 or 3/5 majority, and you do, state constitutional convention, et cetera, et cetera. But this is not that, okay? And the only thing that came to my mind when I hear John Bolton talking, there's a few words. Authoritarian, because that's what he is. Fascist, because that's what he is. Again, these just by definition, not by my opinion. A dictator, because that's what he is. Just let the government do whatever they want. And un-American, because make no mistake about it, if John Bolton wants the guy who told us that our Fourth Amendment rights are being violated to be killed, then he is directly in conflict with the Founding Fathers and with the Constitution, and he says, I disagree with what this country was founded on, so yes, I am un-American.